Welcome to the Risk Taker Podcast. I'm your host, Ebens, man. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, wonderful week, a wonderful weekend, man. Listen, man, every day God gave you, each day that God gave you, man, take a chance to bless somebody, to inspire somebody, man. So let's get into this episode. I have a wonderful person here with me inside the mobile office, man. Patricia, how you feeling? How you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm doing wonderful. I am so blessed to be here with you, to be here with beautiful Gertha, and to have seen what you all have built in such a short time. So I'm just blown away by you and so grateful to have this opportunity to talk with you and get to know you as well.
Yeah, awesome. Man, for people that don't know you, can you tell them a little bit about yourself, people that don't know you?
Absolutely. So, I have a marketing company, Hook PR Marketing. We've been in business for 18 years. I also have a consultancy, Hook Strategic, where we do more just one-on-one work or I do more one-on-one work with nonprofits. And we really focus on helping organizations tell their story in a way that's strategic and inclusive so that it really speaks to the people that they want to reach.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What made you take on that risk? Like what made you go for that business or go for that dream? What was that thing?
So I was a journalist and my last job was at the Dallas Morning News, right? And I was traveling a lot. At that point, I had an infant and who we had very blessed to have a full-time nanny who was with her. But I just always felt torn by that. I lost my mother when I was 4. So I felt like this isn't how I want to live my life. I want to be there. I want to show up for my child. And quite frankly, the moment that my daughter chose, her nanny, who she spends all time with, instead of me when she was crying, was sort of like, you know what? I don't want to live this life. Like, I want to be there for my child. And that's when I decided this would have been, more than 20 years ago. And the internet was definitely taking off, but there wasn't the quality control with translations, with content yet. And I saw an opportunity to do more with Spanish translations. My father's a professor, language professor, Latin American literature. So we started a translation agency. I continued to do journalistic work. So it was very part-time at the beginning. I mean, I worked full-time, but then, I was also doing a lot of journalism, but that was the risk. And I just felt like this is what I need to do. And this is the moment. Right. And that was more than 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
You mentioned something so you start the agency with your dad.
Yes.
How was that experience? Seeing your dad, how was that experience for you working together as daughter and father? How was that experience?
It was really a beautiful experience. My father is a university professor. He's also an author and a poet. So I've always seen from afar the respect that he's, received. And then being able to work with him, it was a little bit difficult because there wasn't Zoom yet, I mean, there were things you could do, right? There were options, but there were some challenges and the internet didn't always work, So we had some communications challenge, but just getting to know him, getting to work with him was really a beautiful experience. And it didn't last very long, right? Because it was a way to help me, get things going because he had the language experience, I didn't because I came here when I was 7. I didn't have all of the degrees in Spanish that he did. So we were able to build guidelines. We were able to build a structure, and then he was like, okay, I got to focus on my work now. I'm like, I got it.
Have you ever felt like you're building something with no blueprint? Just hustle, faith, and late nights holding it all together? Then this book is for you. Building from scratch, from hustle to strategy. How to build, scale, and succeed in business isn't just a book. It's a playbook. Written by the dynamic duo behind this very podcast. It's packed with the real lessons, mindset shifts, and step-by-step game plans they used to build from absolutely nothing. If you're stuck in hustle mode, but ready for strategy, this book meets you right there. Grab your copy now at the Dynamic Duos Speaks.com because your next level requires a new strategy.
How was the experience? Because you say you came here when you were 7.
Mm-hmm.
As being I believe you from Bolivia, right?
Correct.
When you first came here, like how was that experience for you as a young girl? Like how was that experience not knowing the language when you go to school? How was that? Because I'm from Haiti. As an immigrant, I know it took me some time to adjust to the culture. How was that
Yeah.
for you?
Honestly, it was hard. It was really hard because I lost my mom when I was 7, right? My dad lost his mother, my grandmother, a year later. And I think he felt, and it was a time of a lot of political unrest. In Bolivia, my dad was president of the Journalists Association. And there was a lot of persecution of journalists. And so, military would come and we would have to hide. So there was a lot of like trauma, right? In
Yep.
early childhood. We came to the United States, at least in Bolivia, I had family, my family. I lived with my grandmother when she was in hospice. Everybody was there every day. So I felt surrounded. I felt protected. Coming to the United States was really hard. My dad was very focused on his work as he needed to be.
Yep.
And I felt very uprooted and alone. So, and it took me a while to be honest, to be able to really, feel like I belonged.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was one shock for you as a young child? Like, what was it? One shock for? Was it like for me? Like when I first came here, like the shock was like the weather, because where I'm from, the weather is really hot. Getting here in the state, it was cold. No, I first got into Delaware, it was cold.
Yeah.
So what was the first shock for you as a young girl?
Yeah. So we lived in California in Davis. So my dad initially taught at the University of California, Davis, and the weather's beautiful, right? And it's a beautiful town. All of that was great. Honestly, it was an isolation from family because I grew up surrounded by my grandma and my aunts and my cousins where we were, running around. We had lunch together because, the central meal in Bolivia is lunch every day, at least from what I could remember, right? And it
Yep.
might have been just because my grandma was, in hospice that everybody came, but that's what I remember, is just being surrounded by family. So that was what shocked me. I didn't see those deep, family connections in everyday life, right? And of course I was a child, so I don't, they could have been there, but for me, they weren't there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so when you first took the risk for your business, what was some of your challenges? Like, what was some of your challenges? Like, you took on that risk, you have that vision now, and you about to put a work to that vision. Like, what were some of your challenges?
Yeah. I think early on, some of the challenges were having a virtual business when it was still a little bit before its time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, like internet would fall. And I lived here in Sussex County, so I was limited, I felt, and now I know I wasn't, right? But at that moment, I felt I was limited geographically to this area, or if I went outside, I still had young kids. At that point, I had 2. And so I think that was a challenge. It was partly mental, thinking I'm limited geographically,
Mm-hmm.
but then there were real barriers at that point to running a virtual business. Some people, like my web designer, is from Bolivia, and some people really had a hard time with that when Zoom became more of a thing. And I was like, let's get on the Zoom call. And they were like, what? Don't you have anyone here? It was like, it was a challenge.
It's a challenge. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How, throughout this process, throughout your journey, like how, because we, as entrepreneur, we talk about like the success that we have, we talk about the challenge, but how fate, like, because as an entrepreneur, like you gotta lean into something, like you gotta lean into something that's gonna give you strength, that's gonna give you the energy that you want. How does fate play a big role in your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, no, faith has been a part of my life always. I've always, even as a child, been very spiritual. And, I think that was God and my mother always protecting me, right? My father, for his own reasons, didn't believe into church, probably because his wife and his mother died, right? And
Mm-hmm.
at some point they're like, yeah, is there a God, right? So he was going through that. And my brother and I we just walk to church by ourselves. And I felt, even though I felt alone a lot, I felt deeply protected and really blessed that I was, through my childhood and into adulthood. And now obviously it's still a very important part of my life,
Yeah.
but I've also sort of expanded a little bit more into just mindfulness practices, right? So I'm actually this tomorrow, I'm going to start a program called A Year of Living Mindfully. And it's just a year of meditation, right? I choose prayer too, and a meditation and prayer, and just being aware, right? And also understanding sort of your role in the greater universe. So I'm really excited about that. For me, that's part of my spirituality as well. So definitely it's carried me. My faith, God has carried me through a lot. So
A lot.
yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned you have two kids now, like as an entrepreneur, and a lot of people don't talk about that. Like how how hard is it hard to be an entrepreneur, to raise kids? Like how is it for you? Because
Yeah.
and I could speak from experience. My wife and I, we have two little ones, and running a business. We always say we don't make excuses. We make priority for our kids,
Wow.
for our business. Like how, like the adjustment. People say balance. Like for you, how is it?
Yeah. I prioritize my kids, right? So I started my business 20 years ago, but and I always did multiple things. I mean, now my business is full time. I have a team right now. It's like a real deal, right? But honestly, at the beginning, it was me and maybe two people, maybe three people, right? I kept it manageable
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to be able to go on those trips. I always dropped off my kids. I picked them up. I took them to their things. I mean, there were some days that you can't, right?
Yeah.
But for me, like being there was my priority, to the point that I think I lost my identity as a business owner, right? Because, and there was a turning point for me, because I would show up at the bus stop, right? In my loungewear, in my mom wear, right? And this was when my business was starting to grow, right? And at some point I got a little embarrassed, so maybe I should get out of my sweats when I go pick up my kids, right? But I think I just got lost in that identity, and I had to say, you know what? You are a business owner,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't look like a business owner, people aren't going to take you
Seriously.
seriously, right? So at some point when they were getting into middle school, and they had more, now actually middle school was very intense because you got to take them everywhere, right?
Yep.
But as they're getting older, I'm like, okay, like I need to, like, if I'm going to pay for college, I got to make this business really grow.
Well,
So for me, that was like turning a little bit, shifting and being more balanced, truly being more balanced. I was also a single mom. So because of that, I felt I had to be more present, with my kids.
All right, risk takers, quick break before we dive back in. If you've been building, grinding, and betting on yourself, it's time your wardrobe matched your mindset. Owig apparel isn't just clothing, it's a statement. From the bold risk taker hoodies to the signature dream chasers tees, every piece is designed to remind you why you started. Shop now at owigapparel.com, because when you walk in purpose, your clothes should speak before you do. Back to the episode.
how is it to be to be a woman CEO now? Because you are a CEO of your own business, and like how do you navigate through that as being a woman CEO? Like what's one thing that you could give advice to a young girl that want to become their own CEO? Like what kind of advice would you give?
Yeah.
No.
I think we lose the sight of balance, right? And as women, we give up too quickly. Only 2% of women-owned businesses reach the $1 million mark. All right. Now, it's not huge for the general population either, but only 2%, right? And why? Because we don't believe in ourselves, because we don't have access. I mean, there's some real systemic issues. We don't have access to capital, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are networking barriers that are more difficult for us, right? We have our own struggles with balance and family, right? That men don't always. Your generation, but mine was not struggling with balance, right? So all of these things make it that so that we don't keep pushing forward, and some of it very justifiably. And only 2% really reach that level of success that is attainable if you just persist, right?
And you gotta believe. You said something. You gotta believe in yourself. That's one thing that I always say. Like, first you have the vision, you have the goals, but if you don't believe that you can achieve it, it's just gonna sit. It's not gonna go nowhere. So you have to have confidence. And some people it take time. Now it take time for you to believe in your own self. And other people like me, it was somebody had to see something in me that I couldn't see. No. So sometimes you have that, but you say you have to be persistent and you can't give up. That's one of my thing, that you can't, anything that you want achieve in life, you can't give up. You gotta don't give it a day or two, give it at least a year, or like a year or 2 years or 3 years. Say, you know what? I did that. It didn't work out for me. No, but what was the strategy that you put in place? No, what was the strategy? So I'm glad that you say that.
If I could just follow up on that.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we get stuck and we don't even know why we're stuck, right? And I think this was it with me, right? It's those same limiting beliefs that we don't even know we have, right? So there was something in me that just wanted to keep it small, and maybe I used my children as an excuse to a point, right?
Mm-hmm.
To a point to say, yeah, no, I want to keep it small. I want to keep it manageable. But part of that was real. I mean, I did, but part of it was also not believing that I could be a CEO, right? I don't have the math skills. I'm not an extrovert. Like, all these things we tell ourselves that aren't even true. Like, I don't need to be an extrovert to be a CEO. I have bookkeepers and accountants, right? I don't need to. You gotta know some math, right? You gotta be able to add up, right? But you know, and so we limit ourselves, right? And we give up.
Yep.
Yeah. And it takes time to just, I mean, I remember the first time I was reading a book. It was like The Best Year Yet by Michael Miller or something like that. It was a planning book. But the early exercises were like, identify your limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I did that, I started to cry, because I didn't know that I had been carrying some of these beliefs for so long, and they were holding me back. And it was like deeply emotional, and it's taken years. I mean, it's not like, okay, now I know everything's all. It takes years to work through it. So that's, for me, that's part of the journey, you know, is understanding what's going to limit you, and then chip at it, get help, videos. I mean, now there's so much beautiful stuff, including these inspirational talks that can really help us open our eyes.
Yep. You mentioned something, you have to work on it. Like it's sometimes it takes years. For some people, right? I'm gonna say this, like, people quit, like you said, people quit too soon, right? They don't believe in themselves. But you did something. You went out and to invest. You invest in a book. Talk about, like, invest in yourself, invest in your business, not just in your business, but also invest in your family.
Yeah.
As a female CEO, as a single parent, you have to invest in yourself. What other stuff that you did, though, that you have to invest in yourself?
So investing in classes and courses, but I will say, I think the biggest turning point for me was investing in meditation, investing in mindfulness. I took like a 7-day silent retreat this year in April. I went to California as part of this program, didn't speak, right? And just, that's huge, to be able to just have that time to myself, and I was disconnected, from anything.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the kind of things that, for me, it was really introspection. I think when you're a child and you're an immigrant and you've had losses, you're in survival mode.
Yep.
right? And you're not feeling anything. You're just like showing up and doing your work, and you're working really hard. But like I couldn't tell you what I felt, right? So like doing that introspection and doing meditation and really learning emotional regulation as well. Like all of those things were an investment in me that I felt paid off hugely, you know?
I like that. That's the, people always say, what's the return on my investment? Because when you invest in something, you want to know what's my return on my investment. You always gotta not just invest in one time, but continue to invest daily. You gotta continue to be a student. We don't
It's a
know.
lifelong journey.
Yeah, we don't know everything. Did you, throughout your journey, did you find any mentor that help you?
So many. And that's the beautiful thing, is that if you are open to receiving guidance and feedback and advice, you will meet the most amazing people that will guide you, you know, through everything that you need. I had two mentors,
Mm-hmm.
in a women's group that the score, you know, Delaware had. This was years ago. There was a women's group, and it was Antar Data, who was the president at that point, and then also Ellen Herbert from SBA. They put together this program. They saved my life through COVID, honestly. They did, because they got us together, and they were like, okay, like in my case, how are you going to survive? And we had to quickly say, okay, we got to provide digital services. The dance studio needs to be able to do it in their home so that they can continue to, you know, provide classes to people. Like, so we had to set them up with all of, not the technology in their studio or in their home, but how are we going to be able to transmit it, right? So it was, that group was incredible for me. But along the way, there have been other people that have touched me so deeply and have helped me, right, and have guided me. Even like conversations that, like, you're like, wow, like I needed to hear that, right? And like every day, honestly, every day I feel blessed that there's someone who was put on my path,
Yep.
right, to help me in some way.
Yeah. Yeah. And like before I was speaking to you off camera, like when I had met you, but it's been what, a decade ago, right? And you was teaching a reading class that I was the student, and you had mentioned something that you got caught my attention. Like I say that you say that you were an entrepreneur and you were a journalist. Those two things caught my attention. And like I was telling you off camera, like the way you teach the class, the way you present yourself and everything, it inspired me. Now it even inspired me. And throughout the years, we kept in touch. Eventually we doing this right now. So just appreciate what you do and what other, you don't know who you can inspire. You inspire a lot of people, not just women, but you inspire the generation that's coming. Especially as being an immigrant, we know we have to work twice as 10 times harder than anybody else. No, because we are from another country. Even though we are here, we make this country part of our country, but we know it's not an easy thing as an immigrant. You don't know the language. You come here. Like, what advice, like, for people who's an immigrant, what advice would you give them?
Find resources. There are many free resources available to help small business people. There's resources to help everyone, but small business people, early on, I had a SCORE mentor, Len Kidwell, who was around in Sussex County for a while. I had these two women who really saved me, you know, time and time again. I've used, I mean, it's growing a blank, but the point is, like, an entrepreneur can find so many. Now we have Plaza,
Yep.
you know, which I was very blessed to be a part of forming as well, right? Helping create that. Even chambers, like, I mean, you know, I mean, yes, you have to pay, but then you get so much out of it. So there are so many resources to help you, free resources or low cost resources, that you're not alone.
Yep.
And there are groups, there are masterminds, there are small business groups. Like, if you want to grow your business and you're open you're going to be able to do it, and you're going to find the resources to do it.
Okay. What's one thing that you regret, or what's one risk that you didn't take that you say, man, I should have taken that opportunity? The reason I asked you that, I was listening to Magic Johnson. He was doing a podcast interview, and he was saying at 19, two company had came to him, Nike and what was the other company? It was another shoe company that came to him. Nike offered him stock, and the other company offered him basically money. He took the cash instead of the stock, and he was saying from 2025, the stock would be like $0.6 billion. No, he didn't took that risk. He didn't take that because he didn't have the knowledge of that.
Yeah.
Do you ever look back saying, you know what? Have you ever looked back in your journey that happened to you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have anything as big as that, right? I didn't walk away from millions of dollars. So, I think the biggest risk was just not believing in myself sooner. And like, I see the two of you, and I think what you're doing is phenomenal. Like, you're building a business, you're building a foundation, you're building a brand, you're an inspiration to so many people. Like, I just think that's phenomenal, right? And there was at one point I wanted, and I still do, but I wanted to create videos and content in Spanish at a lower literacy level, because I think there's a lot of translations and they're poor because they're written poorly in English, right? So I wanted to create content at the 5th grade level that was best practices, and really was able to help people in videos as well, right? And I just feel like I got stuck with that and I didn't do it. And now life is more complicated, right? But I see you all and building your personal brand, and that's part of it, right? Is I wish, and I did all the Amy Porterfield classes, right? I was like, I bought like several of them. I was going to do courses. And it's just, I don't know if the fact that there's such resistance, I'm not sure why, but that's sort of a regret I have, but mostly just not believing in myself sooner, because I missed out on opportunities. I missed out on growing, right?
Yep.
So.
Okay. One last question. If you had to give any advice to entrepreneurs who already took the risk already, who's been successful, who's on this journey, right? Who's seasoned entrepreneur, and the new entrepreneur that's coming in, that they on the edge, like they want to take a risk, but they don't know the strategy, they don't know the plan, they don't know how to do it. What advice would you give to the seasoned entrepreneur and the new entrepreneur who want to take risks on their dreams?
Yeah. For the seasoned, it's easy. Give back, right?
Ooh, you hit a point. Okay.
It's time to give back. You have earned, right?
Yep.
You have built, and now it's time to give back to the community. And it doesn't have to be money. It can be your time, right? It can be your leadership, but at some point you do have to give back. For the person starting out, too many businesses start without a strategy. Right? They have an idea. They haven't done their competitive analysis, right? They haven't even really done their branding. They don't know how they differentiate from the business next door. So it's like, take the time to do a business plan. It can be a 2-page business plan. It doesn't have to be 50 pages, but you have to have a strategy, right? You have to know your competition. You have to know what your differentiators are. You have to articulate your value proposition. And there are free resources.
Yeah.
SCORE has people who can help you, right? For free. The SBA has people that can help you as well. So the resources are there, but don't do it blindly. Don't do it blind. You need a map. You need a compass, right? To be successful.
So you said two things. Give back, right? That caught my attention.
Yeah. Why?
Because I felt like if God bless you, you should bless other people. Like you said, it doesn't have to be money. Because could be your time, could be your resource. So that's one of our thing, like give back, like no matter what, big or small, always give back, because you never know who you could bless. Like you never, like I have stories like where we bless kids, we bless their family. Like you never know who's watching you. You never know who you could bless with. Just little that you have could bless somebody else. You say strategy, and that's one of the reasons that we wrote our book. When you're building from scratch, you have in the beginning it's hustle, but when you in year 2, year 3, it's strategy for you to grow your brand, to grow your business. So I'm glad that you mentioned that strategy. Now you gotta have strategy to continue to build your brand.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. Any last word? Any last thing that where if people wanna get in contact with you, how do they get in contact with you for your business?
Right. So hookpr.com is a good way. There's a book a call, book a consultation. And honestly, if someone books a consultation 30 minutes and they have a question they want to ask about business or about marketing, and they say they're from this podcast, I will give it to them for free.
Can you repeat that again? Because I didn't know she was doing that. I didn't know she was doing that. But yeah, can you please say that again?
You write to me, hookpr.com. There's a button at the top right that says book a call. You will automatically get a 30-minute call with me. You have to say that it's because you heard it in this podcast. And because you're following the two of you, that I will give them 30 minutes to answer a strategy question, a marketing question, a confidence question, whatever it is. I'm here to serve your followers as well.
There you go. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it, man. Listen, man, it has been real. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you
for coming into the Bumble office. And yeah, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And I will see you in the next episode.